Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, one of my favorite offseason episodes to do every single year, and that is where does this depth chart sit coming out of spring practice after the spring transfer portal window? For this Nebraska program, the conversation is so fun because you have a lot of new faces coming into the program. You got a lot of young talent that is pushing for opportunity in 2025. And to go along with all that, you got two new coordinators on both sides of the football inherently. When you have some new faces in the coaching staff, you're going to see some shakeup regarding the depth chart as well. Want to get into a couple of nitty gritty conversations in terms of where this roster sits. Talk about some things we, like about Nebraska's roster. Talk about some questions we have going into 2025. Now, by far the best part about doing this is hearing from y'all in the comment section. Like we all get the opportunity to call our shot with some players that we think will emerge as difference makers going into 2025. Y'all let it fly in the comment section. I say this all the time when we talk Nebraska football. We hear a lot from you guys in the comment section. Y'all come with a lot of good takes, and I learn a lot about this program talking this program with you guys in the comment section. Let it fly. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it now. Starting up at the top of the quarterback room, Dylan, going into year two, I want to give my 30-second elevator pitch on why I think Dylan can take a step, and a big one at that, going into year two. Number one, I think he's just going to get better as a football player. Like having a full Big Ten schedule under your belt in 2024, you're just getting better going into 2025. I think secondly, you have a significantly better offensive coordinator that now gets to install his offense throughout spring practice, throughout fall camp. Dana Holgoresen is night and day better than Coach Satterfield, and I think that's pretty dang clear. I think finally you got better pass catches around him. So you're talking about Dylan going into year two, better offensive system and play calling around him with better playmakers on the outside. Like there's real reason to buy stock in what Dylan can be as a quarterback going into the 2025 year. Now at the running back position, now this is going to be my first hot take of the episode, and that is Nebraska was playing the wrong running back in 2024, at least in my opinion. During the 2024 year, I was pretty dang critical about the running back play in general. Look, Nebraska at times struggled to run the football. I thought that normally when teams struggle to run the football, it has to do with the offensive line, not necessarily the running back room. To me, just my pure eyeballs, I always felt like the running back room, specifically a guy like Dante Dowdle, probably he just struggled to make things happen at the running back position. Then you look at, what Emmett Johnson did, then what Dante Dowdle did. It always seemed like Emmett Johnson was probably the better running back, but Dante got more burn, got more opportunity. Going into 2025, I think he got the right running back one in place. And look, it's not just my eyeballs. You can say, hey, this kid's sitting in his basement in Rochester, New York. What does he know about evaluating running backs? Very fair criticism to make, no doubt about it. Look at the numbers, too. I mean, Dante Dowdle broke 18 tackles all year in the 2024 year, having significantly more carries than Emmett Johnson. Emmett Johnson had 30 missed tackles forced. Emmett Johnson had more yards per carry. Emmett Johnson had more yards per carry after contact. All the metrics that you use to evaluate running backs, I thought Emmett Johnson was the better running back. And so now you have the better running back kind of being the bell cow in 2025, along with a kid in Emmett Johnson that's really dangerous catching the football. I mean, he had 41 targets, caught 39 of them in the 2024 year. That's a 95% completion percentage when Emmett Johnson was targeted. Didn't drop the football once. For a running back that's catching the football that much, and Emmett Johnson didn't drop it once, I think that he's going to be used as one of the difference makers in this Nebraska offense, as opposed to in the 2024 year, I felt like he was just another guy. That's what excites me about Emmett Johnson in this running back room. Now, the one concern is it's not an extremely deep running back room. I'm excited about Jamarian Parker, banged up in spring, probably needs a year to put on a little bit more weight as well. I think Ives and Emmett Johnson are going to be the bell cow backs, you might say, for this Nebraska running back room. wide receiver position. I don't think I'll get any pushback on the three starting wide receivers, Dane Keaton, Isaiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney. I think that has the opportunity to be a elite pass catcher room for Nebraska. And what fires me up about those three wide receivers is they're all different wide receivers that do some things differently. Right, Dane Key is that bigger body that works vertically down the field. That is going to be Dylan's probably number one target in the 2025 year. Having a guy that can utilize Dylan's arm talent, pushing the ball down the field, really big. Hunter coming from Cal is probably outside of Dinky, probably the most complete wide receiver in the room. Like, he's big, can work vertically, can operate after the catch. And then Ja'Cory Barney, arguably the best weapon that Nebraska has on offense. One of those guys that when you give him the football in space, good things are going to happen. It just feels different when this kid has the football in space. This is a particular player that is Ja'Cory Barney that Nebraska probably hasn't had enough of over the last couple of years, specifically in this Dana Holgoresen offense that loves to get their playmakers in space with the football. You might see a monster year from Ja'Cory Barney, and I know Nebraska had to fight to keep Ja'Cory Barney on this football team last year. That's going to pay off in 2025. Then when you look at the depth, look, I'm a huge fan of Janarian Bonner, especially how they use him as sometimes a big slot that's blocking on the perimeter. The two names I'd be looking at are the two true freshmen in Cortez Mills and Isaiah Mosey. Dana Holgoresen likes these two cats, and I think they're going to play a lot of football for Nebraska. It's more talented. You have a little bit more diversity and skill sets as well. I'm excited about the wide receiver room. And then the tight end room is tough. I look at Carter Nelson, just not sure if he's going to be healthy, not sure how Nebraska is going to use him. The name I would pay attention to here is Mac Markway. Transferred from LSU to Nebraska kind of late in the cycle, I believe, like during fall camp last year. He's a hammer as an inline blocker. I think they're going to use him a lot. You got a tight end room that has a lot of different skill sets, right? Luke is like that all-purpose tight end. Carter Nelson, supreme athlete. You can use them in a ton of different ways. And then Mac Markway is like your hammer. And then we obviously know what we have with Heinrich. Offensive line. This is the deepest offensive line Nebraska has had. You got some young talent. You got some veteran talent. To me, it comes down to Elijah Pritchett, who there sounds like going to stick at the left side. If Elijah Pritchett plays the way that he is capable of playing, which is realistically all conference offensive tackle ability. This kid is a tackle that was built in a laboratory. He's just got to play that way because what you've seen from him at Alabama has not been a lot. If Elijah Pritchett plays how he looks, this offensive line should be pretty dang good. Now, I look at the rest of the offensive line and say, I got a lot of confidence in the rest of the offensive line. I think it's a deep unit that has some pieces that you can slot in at different spots. To me, the story is, how good is Elijah Pritchett? If he can play like an all-conference tackle, of which he's capable of, this offensive line should be just fine. In fact, it should be pretty good. But it's going to come down to what Elijah Pritchett looks like in the 2025 year. Going over the defensive side of the football, this is by far, I think for most Nebraska fans who follow this program pretty closely, this is the question, and that is the defensive line, which has been so solid for Nebraska over the last couple of years with guys like Ty and Nash. Not only do you have to replace those two, I'm not sure if Nebraska did enough in the portal. Like, I think you knew you had to add some bodies at this position when you lose guys like Ty and Nash. I just am not sure if they did it. I'm not sure if you have the difference makers, but more importantly, I'm concerned about the depth of this defensive line. Something that Nebraska struggled with sneaky in 2024, like guys like Ty Robbins had to play a lot of snaps for Nebraska over the last couple of years because the depth wasn't quite there. And can Riley Van Poppel come in and play the amount of snaps at the caliber that a guy like Ty or Nash did is probably a question. Now, at the edge or the three tech, you look at Cam Leonard, I think he's a stud. Williams Nwaneri is a very, very intriguing body to watch. I think Keona Davis is a very good football player. I just don't know if you have enough size and depth on this defensive line, and that's what we'll see. I mean, Nebraska fans who follow this program know if you want to compete at a high level in the Big Ten, you got to be big and you got to be deep along the lines of scrimmage. To be determined if they are big and deep enough in 2025. Jack linebacker spot should be awesome. Like Deshaun McCullough, Willis McGinn, that should be an elite unit. I am fired up to see how they use those two guys. Deshaun McCullough, I feel like is getting slept on because he had a quiet 2 years at Oklahoma. This kid can rip it up off the edge, especially rushing the passer, can fly around the football field. The Jack linebacker spot should have been his home at Oklahoma. It wasn't. I'm fired up to see what this kid can do for Nebraska in the 2025 year. Off-ball linebacker, that's another position that to me is upgraded. You have more athleticism at linebacker than Nebraska has in a very, very long time. Like Vincent Shavers to me is going to be special. Javin Wright's a guy that if he stays healthy, you've seen him get better at the off-ball linebacker position. You're bringing a guy like Marquise Watson-Trent, who I think is just steady Eddie there. He might not be the juiced up athlete a guy like Vincent Shavers is, but we know he can play. I think the off-ball linebacker room should be solid. Secondary, I don't have Malcolm Hartzog starting. And let me be clear about Malcolm Hartzog. I don't think he's a horrible football player. I think he was playing grossly, and I mean grossly out of position at boundary cornerback in the back half of 2024. They kind of had to play in there because they dealt with some injuries. I mean, he is my height, and I'm 5'9", and I'm being generous when I'm saying I'm 5'9", and he's just not that fast. Like the athletic profile is telling us, like this kid should not be out on the boundary covering 6'2", 190 wide receivers. I think he can be solid as a nickel. I think he can be solid as a safety. There's an opportunity for him to get on the football field, but it can't be at the boundary cornerback position. In fact, I think the boundary cornerback spot should be pretty damn good. I mean, Zaire Wright was playing like one of the best boundary cornerbacks in the Big Ten last year at the end of November. Andrew Marshall coming in from the FCS ranks. Deshaun Singleton, that's an NFL dude that Nebraska has at safety. I think the secondary should be pretty good in you're deeper and more talented. You're not going to be in a position that Nebraska was in 2024 where you had to play guys knowing damn well they should be playing a different position. Look, it's a big year for Matt Rhule. There's a lot of positions to like about this football team. If this defensive line can just be solid. Like I don't think any of us are expecting Nebraska's defensive line to be elite in 2025, but if it can just be solid and you get some progressions from some other places on this roster, should be a good football team. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.